Welcome to What Dwells Beneath. I'm your lantern bearer, Perzival, and joined with me is our producer, Neku, our curator of the static. Tonight, we step off the beaten path in the heart of New Jersey's Pine Barrens, a sprawling, secretive wilderness spawning more than 1 million acres of twisted pitch pines, dwarf oaks, and low-lying cedar swamps. The soil here is poor, sandy, and acidic. The trees grow tall and thin, and their needles forming a thick carpet that muffles sound. Cranberry bogs gleam like black glass under moonlight. Rivers run slow and stained the color of strong tea from tannins, and the ruins of old iron forges of glasswork sit half swallowed by the green. Roads become dirt trails that twist and double back. Phone signals vanish within minutes of leaving the highway. The air carries a faint, metallic bite from long extinct industry, and the silence isn't empty. It's thick, watchful, as if the forest itself is aware of your presence and deciding whether to let you pass. Deep within these cedar woods and cranberry bogs lies the territory claimed by the Jersey Devil, one of the oldest and most persistent cryptids in North American folklore. I want you to visualize it. Broad, bat-like wings of dark membrane stretched over bony frames, capable of spanning 6 to 8 feet, a head stretched long and narrow, like a horse's, but armored with curling, ram-like horns and sharp teeth, eyes that catch and reflect light in an unnatural way, glowing faintly in a gloom, compact muscular body covered in coarse hair or scales. Powerful hind legs ending in cloven hooves that leave deep, distinctive prints. A long, flexible tail, forked at the tip, that lashes with purpose. Its vocalization is legendary, a sound that begins as a high, keening wail like a woman in distress, climbs to an ear-splitting shriek, and resolves into a low, rumbling growl that lingers in your bones. For nearly 3 centuries, this entity has haunted the collective imagination of southern New Jersey, appearing in fireside tales passed down through generations. Sensational newspaper accounts, grainy photographs, dashcam clips, and hushed personal confessions shared in the dead of night. Tonight, we face the central mystery directly. Is the Jersey Devil the direct result of a birth curse uttered in despair in 1735? A demonic being literally brought to existence by human words and emotion? Or is it a misunderstood creature of the natural world, perhaps a case of repetitive misidentification, or an evolutionary holdover whose legend has been exaggerated by isolation, fear, and the human compulsion to explain the shadows? We're going to follow the thread chronologically, from its alleged supernatural origin and colonial hardship, through the scattered but chilling sightings of the 19th century, to the explosive mass hysteria of 1909 known as the Week of Terror, and to the quieter but persistent reports of the 20th and 21st century, and finally to the evidence and theories that persist today. We'll look at physical traces, eyewitness credibility, scientific skepticism, cultural context, and symbolic meaning. At the end, I'll share my own conclusion, but this journey is yours to interpret. The Pine Barrens have a habit of shifting perspectives. Some of you may enter as doubters, but leave questioning everything. Our tale begins in the 1730s, deep in the colonial New Jersey's southern frontier. The Pine Barrens dominated the region, vast, largely barren of fertile soil, and sparsely settled compared to the richer farmland to the north. Those who lived here survived on bog iron mining, charcoal burning for the forges, small-scale glass production in isolated hamlets, and whatever hunting or trapping the land would allow. Life was hard, winters brutal, and summers humid and insect-plagued. Superstition flourished in the isolation. People gathered around hearth fires to share stories that blended old-world beliefs, which were demons, witches, and changelings, with the spiritual traditions of the Lenape, the indigenous people who had long understood the Barrens' rhythms, its healing herbs, in treacherous sinkholes called blue holes, and its unseen presence that required offerings and respect. The family at the center of this was the Leeds, settled near the area now known as Leeds Point, a low, marshy split of land near the Atlantic, prone to flooding and storms. Daniel Leeds was a man of some learning, a surveyor, printer of almanacs, and dabbler in astrology and esoteric knowledge. This put him at odds with the stricter religious communities, and these were the Quakers and the Anglicans, who saw him as a heretic. Rivals attacked him in pamphlets, calling the Leeds lineage cursed or monstrous in thinly veiled terms. His son Titan carried on the family name amid this lingering hostility. In the winter of 1735, Deborah Leeds, remembered as Mother Leeds, was heavily pregnant with her 13th child. Now, the number 13 carries an ominous weight in folklore and scripture. Some examples are Judas the Betrayer, the number of the rebellion. But Mother Leeds was exhausted, physically from endless childbearing and labor, emotionally from poverty and a difficult home life. As a fierce storm battered at the cabin, lightning was illuminating the room in stark flashes. Midwives attended her through a long and painful labor. In a moment of utter fatigue and frustration, she is said to have cried out, "Let this one be a devil." The child was born alive, crying normally at first. Then, according to the midwives' later accounts, which was passed on orally and eventually printed, the transformation began right in front of them. The baby's skin darkened and toughened like leather or scales. Limbs stretched grotesque, fingers curling in like claws, small, membranous wings pushed at the shoulders, and a tail sprouted and whipped violently. The cries shifted from infant wails to a deep, monstrous roar that rattled the cabin's walls and sent the midwives recoiling. In panic, the newborn creature attacked those closest, scratching, biting, before launching itself upward, bursting through the chimney in a cloud of sparks, embers, and soot, disappearing into the storm last night. This story didn't arise in a vacuum. It drew from a deep well of tradition. European changeling lore, which were fairies replacing human babies with monstrous substitutions. Then there is succubi and incubi from medieval texts, even echoes of Lenape beliefs in shape-shifting forest spirits or guardians angered by trespass. Historians have suggested political motives, enemies of the Leeds family exaggerating or inventing the tale to discredit them, turning domestic hardship into supernatural scandal. Variations do exist. Some versions involve a gypsy woman cursing the household. Others a forbidden affair with a British soldier during tense colonial times, producing a hybrid child of sin. Some even claim the curse was amplified by the land itself, the Barrens' iron-rich, boggy soil, rumored to hold strange magnetic or spiritual properties that made some such manifestation more likely. What makes this curse so enduring is its emotional truth. It speaks out to the terror of parenthood under duress, the fear that one exhausted outburst could invite something permanent and evil. In an era without medical help, where birth was private and perilous, a deformed or stillborn child could be interpreted as judgment, as a bad omen. Almost immediately after, strange occurrences were reported. Local livestock found gutted with precise, almost ritualistic wounds. Some fishermen even stated that they saw a large winged shadow gliding low over the water, its silhouette cutting through the fog like a knife. Local children even reported cloven hoofprints that appeared in soft ground and stopped abruptly, as if the maker had taken flight. A surviving Lenape oral tradition mentions a winged hunger or a sky demon would rise when sacred grounds were disturbed by settlers. Whatever the truth was, the seed was planted. In the isolation of the Barrens, it took root and waited, feeding on every unexplained noise, every missing sheep, every shadow that moved when it shouldn't. When the 19th century came, it transformed parts of the Barrens. Railroads cut through, more forges and glasswork operated, but the core wilderness endured, and so did the sightings. They grew more frequent and detailed. In December 1819, Commodore Stephen Decatur, supervising cannon testing at the Hanover Ironworks, watched as his crew spotted a large, bat-winged creature circling high overhead. They fired grape shot. The form dipped into the tree line, leaving behind only a faint smell of sulfur that clung to the air for hours. The following year, Joseph Bonaparte, the exiled brother of Napoleon, resided in Grand Style at Bordentown, claims he encountered the beast while hunting. The New Jersey Devil apparently crossed his path in a bounding leap, wings partially spread. Bonaparte fired, but it veered skyward, unscathed, leaving the former king visibly shaken according to his own letters. Accounts continued through the decades. Stagecoach drivers on remote roads reported sudden ambushes, the creature landing on the roof and screeching until the horses bolted in terror. Some passengers were even thrown into ditches. In 1873, a group of picnickers near the Mullica fled from what they described as a low-flying serpent that circled repeatedly, its cries sending them running into the underbrush, some swearing they felt the downdraft of its wings on their necks. Newspapers began using the name Leeds Devil or Jersey Devil, turning local frights into a regional legend of cryptic illustrations that exaggerated the features for maximum terror. Then arrived January 1909, the infamous Week of Terror. It began, innocently enough, on the 16th near Bristol, Pennsylvania. Policeman James Sackville followed a trail of cloven hoofprints in fresh snow. Prints that cleared fences in single bounds, scaled vertical walls, and appeared on rooftops with no corresponding marks below. Within hours, identical tracks showed up in Haddonfield, Collingswood, and Camden, New Jersey. The hysteria ignited like dry tinder. Reports poured in. A woman in one town woke to find the creature perched on her windowsill, staring intently with the eyes like burning coals. In Gloucester, it reportedly charged a trolley car, shattering windows and scattering passengers in panic. Schools shut down for days. Armed posses patrolled streets and the woods. Factories lost shifts as workers refused to venture out after dark. Newspapers across the Northeast did not help with the mass hysteria. They ran headlines stating "Devil Loose in New Jersey," accompanied by crude sketches of some sort of monster. Over 7 frantic days, more than 1,000 sightings were documented. Hoofprints that appeared to burn through snow, dogs and livestock killed in ways that suggested cunning rather than instinct. A minister in Burlington claimed the creature hovered above his church, bellowing distorted scripture. Rewards were then posted. The Philadelphia Zoo even offered $10,000 for a live specimen. But hoaxes quickly emerged, as they usually do. Some tracks were faked with carved tools. A showman admitted using a painted kangaroo with fake wings to drum up business, yet many accounts came up with respected sources. Physicians, clergy, law enforcement, who refused to recant even years later. If you ask me, the panic reflected deeper tensions. Rapid industrialization and an eroding rural life, waves of immigration stirring fears of the other, and sensational media turning suggestion into mass delusion. When the fervor died down, the devil slipped back into the shadows. But the mark it left was permanent. Before we dive deeper, a quick word about how you can support What Dwells Beneath. If you enjoy these deep explorations of the strange, the eerie, and the unexplained, consider joining us on Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get early access to every episode, ad-free listening, bonus mini-episodes on lesser-known cryptids and hauntings, exclusive Q&A streams, and your name read in the show. Higher tiers unlock behind-the-scenes research notes, custom episode requests, and even one-on-one voice messages from me about your own weird experiences. Patreon is what keeps the lights on and lets me keep digging into these stories without rushing or cutting corners. Head to patreon.com/whatdwellsbeneath and pick the tier that feels right. Every pledge helps this show stay independent and weird. Thank you to everyone who's already supporting, and you make this possible. Now, back to the tale. The legend never truly vanished. It evolved with the times. In 1927, a taxi driver near Salem reported the creature slamming into his car, leaving dents in the roof and no trace of an animal. During World War II, radar operators at Fort Dix picked up fast-moving, unexplained blips that didn't match birds or aircraft, However, I have a different theory for that altogether. But the 1960s saw a huge surge. Boy Scouts camping in Warden State Forest endured nights of prolonged, unearthly howls. Morning revealed oversized claw tracks around their site. Television brought renewed attention. The 2008 Monster Quest episode sent teams into the Barrens with night vision, thermal cameras, and directional microphones. They recorded high-pitched screeches that the audio experts couldn't really identify as a fox, owl, or coyote, along with the fleeting heat signatures that moved through the thick cover and vanished. Then the internet age accelerated everything, as it usually does. A 2015 trail camera photo from the Batona Trail showed a winged silhouette against the moon. In 2022, a dashcam footage on Route 539 captured a bipedal figure darting across the beam of the headlights, and its eyes reflected bright red. More recent reports, including a 2023 hiker along the Mullica River Trail, described powerful wing beats overheard, followed by a shriek that sent every bird in the area exploding into flight. In 2024, a kayaker on the Oswego River who watched something large and dark rise from the water, wings unfurling like wet sails before submerging again. YouTube and TikTok channels featured a few interviews with locals describing fresh tracks, strange calls at dusk, or feelings of being watched on familiar trails. Dedicated groups like the New Jersey Devil Hunters conduct regular expeditions, setting trail cams, using audio playback of recorded screeches, even going as far as baiting with raw meat or goat blood. Physical evidence remains tantalizing, but inconclusive. Plaster casts of three-toed prints with deep claw drags that seem too precious for hoaxes. Even hair samples analyzed as unknown mammalian, but often contaminated. Some have even gone out to the abandoned cabins and done EVP recordings, and they've captured whispered words like leads or curse. Skeptics offer grounded explanations. For example, they bring up the migrating sandhill crane, whose 6 to 7 foot wingspan and rattling calls match many descriptions. Another is escaped or released exotic bats like the hammerhead bat from Pet Trade. It could be white-tailed deer suffering from chronic waist disease or injuries that force them to stand or move on hind legs in bizarre ways. The Barrens ecology is rich with hidden life. There are carnivorous pitcher plants, secretive pine snakes, rare frogs, but no verified large undiscovered species. Still, significant portions remain trailless and unmapped on foot, leaving space for reasonable doubt. The theories split into clear camps. Those favoring the curse see a supernatural entity, a being possibly manifested or summoned by collective belief over centuries, a tulpa sustained by storytelling and fear. Indigenous perspectives at depth, some Lenape traditions frame such figures as consequences of imbalance. The land is desecrated, spirits angered by colonial expansion and environmental harm. Parallels to other winged humanoids like the Mothman or Owlman suggest a broader pattern of phenomena that crosses cultural lines. The naturalistic side dominates scientific discussion. Repeated misidentification amplified by psychology. Fog, low light, and expectation bias turn cranes, owls, and deer into devils. 1909 was a textbook case of mass hysteria, with media contagion spreading the idea until people saw what they expected. Studies correlate sighting spikes with bird migrations. Another thing to consider is lunar phases that heighten night visibility distortions, or seasonal weather patterns that carry sound farther. Symbolically, the Jersey Devil has evolved into this environmental metaphor, a fierce guardian of the last large wild space of the East Coast, resisting suburban sprawl, pollution from legacy industry, and climate change that threatens the fragile bogs and pine ecosystem. Historians like Brian Regal in The Secret History of the Jersey Devil trace the origin to political slander against the Leeds family. Cryptozoologists, on the other hand, entertain possibilities of relic species or rare mutations from historical toxins in the soil. Now, my own conclusion after weighing it all. The Jersey Devil is primarily a misunderstood creature. A composite of real animals, perceptual errors, and the human brain's love of patterns, all wrapped in an extraordinary, powerful, and adaptive myth. Yet there are persistent anomalies that I can't explain. Those unusual vocalizations, the tracks that defy easy replication, the sheer consistency of descriptions over time. That leaves a narrow crack for something stranger. In our hyper-mapped, satellite-covered world, we still crave places where the unknown can hide, and the Barrens provide exactly that. Tonight, we followed the Jersey Devil from a cursed cabin berth to modern trail cams and kayaks, asking the question if it's damnation given form or nature misunderstood. Its staying power proves that some mysteries are more viable unresolved. The trails around Leeds Point remain quiet and inviting. The legend lives on in books, documentaries, online discussions, and whispered warnings shared around campfires. If this episode stirred something in you, a theory, a memory, a sighting, please share it via email at whatdwellsbeneath@gmail.com. Your stories and listener encounters help shape what comes next. We have some truly spooky stuff coming in the next few weeks, my dear dwellers. Are you ready for it? Until then, pay attention to the quiet places. What dwells beneath might be closer than the next tree.